Hey garden friends, welcome back to Not Quite Homesteading, ESK Garden. Today we're in my kitchen and I'm going to be making my first attempt at preservation. So I wanted to bring you guys along for that. Preservation can be, quite overwhelming, and I have a lot going on, a lot of things in the refrigerator that I want to get out. And we just pulled some things out of the garden that we do need to get preserved so that they don't go to waste. And I want to start making progress towards that. So that's what we're going to be doing in today's video. I'm going to start, I do have my food processor ready behind me. I'm going to start with shredding up some zucchini that I've been pulling out of the garden over the last couple of weeks. I've had them wrapped in the refrigerator so that the skins don't get altered or messed up or anything like that. And I want to go ahead and get those shredded and frozen. I'm also going to be starting our preservation for our onions. I'm going to be slicing and dicing onions to put away in the freezer. I do have some that are just kind of like a few left over from the store, but we did pull our red onions recently and I want to go ahead and get those out. We are expecting rain today. They have been outside for like the last maybe 4 or 5 days or so. And I don't want them to get rained on after they spent this time kind of drying out, at the tops. So I will be pulling them in. I'm also going to be weighing them with you guys. And then we'll go ahead and start the process of chopping. Now, I don't know if I'll get through all of them today because onions can be, a teary-eyed job. But I'm going to do my best to get through as many as I can. I have a few other things that are in the refrigerator that I think have been in there for some time, and I want to figure out a way to try to preserve some of those things too. So let's see how much we can get done before, my energy just completely washes out. But let's go ahead and start up with the zucchini. So I'm going to be using some of this Dr. Bronner's unscented castle soap in order to rinse the zucchini off. So I was looking for options that are supposed to be really good for helping to clean vegetables, and that like you can use to help get like any pesticides sprayed on the vegetables off, organic as well. And insecticidal soap obviously was one of those things that a lot of people reference. I just was like, maybe I can find another alternative. So I went with the Dr. Bronner's, and that I've so far been liking quite a bit. So that's what I'm using. And essentially what I do with it is literally, it's the first wash of the vegetables. And then I'll go ahead and depending on the vegetable, I might do it a second time. But something like the zucchini, especially because it has such a sensitive skin, I would only do this one time. Now, some of these have been in here for quite a little while, and like this one is looking just a tad bit hurt. So I don't know if that's really good. I don't know if I'm going to preserve that, but the reason I've started looking for something a little bit stronger, and I say stronger, something with some type of ability to kill insects, is because I had found that, like, I guess certain plants or certain bugs, it's actually quite difficult to get them off with just the salt and the vinegar. And I've had a couple of instances where I have found bugs after I cleaned the vegetables. And when I say I clean vegetables pretty good, y'all, I mean I clean them good. Like, if you've been around for any amount of time, you know that I am like virtually scared crapless of all bugs. And the idea of potentially eating one is enough to send me on an insane like woman craze. So I do what I can to try to make sure that the vegetables are really clean. But for some reason, there are some bugs that just don't come off. Like aphids are really, really hard to get off of vegetables. And you really do need to virtually have like something that you can scrub, even leafy greens with. I found that. So I was like, I have to take an additional step in order to make sure that these things are actually like really, really clean and that the bugs actually cannot survive. So that's why I started using the actual soap And then, you know, I didn't want to have to use like regular dishwashing soap. This one I went with, obviously has natural ingredients. It actually doesn't, you know, lather a ton. Like if you've used the Dr. Bronner's like soaps in any capacity, you know, those lather like quite well. This one is very, very mild in, I guess, like the surfactant it uses here because it's designed for babies. So, you know, this is something I don't mind soaping down the vegetables. Depending on the vegetable, I would maybe brush it. Obviously, I'm not going to brush zucchini skins because that'll be asking for bruised zucchini and getting soap and stuff inside. But this is what makes me feel comfortable. So this is what I'm going to be doing for all of my vegetables, especially herbs, you know, going forward. And where I can, leafy greens included, I will absolutely, absolutely, absolutely be brushing them with a vegetable brush. So you don't need a lot. And I will say with certain things, like some things I will let soak a little bit. Some things, you know, they, because of the type of skin that they have, if they're like soft skinned fruits or vegetables, you really don't want to allow them to just, you really don't want to allow them to just sit in soap because you don't want them becoming waterlogged with the stuff, and you don't want like these things seeping into your actual vegetables. But this is important to me to make sure these things are clean and free of any bugs or bug eggs or anything like that. Definitely don't want any of that stuff in my food. So all I'm going to do is rinse this off. I'm going to rinse it really well. I'm going to run some additional cold water over it, and then I'm going to actually pour some vinegar in it so that I can make sure, you know, I'm doing like kind of a secondary follow-up, but also the vinegar will help to ensure that there is absolutely no soap left on the vegetable. So I rinsed these really well. All I'm going to do is pour in just a little bit of vinegar, and I'm going to swoosh this around quite a bit. You can see like some of the older ones that I pulled like either really early on or that got bruised, I let them scab over before I wrap them up, but you can see that they have like a little bit more blemishes than some of the newer ones. So, you know, it's been about a week and a half or so since I started pulling them. We've eaten some, of course, fresh, but you know, you want to try to get the zucchini out the refrigerator, you know, within like 2 weeks if you have to set it aside before you can take care of it. So that's really all I'm going to do for this. Now what I am going to do, because I intend to shred this, and I just want to make sure that like none of the zucchini have been compromised on the inside, I'm just going to go ahead and cut the ends off. Obviously cut them in half, you know, just inspect the inside, and then I'm going to put them through the food processor. I'm expecting this to probably make about 1 quart-size bag, or maybe 2 quart-size bags, maybe 1.5, somewhere in that range. But you know, that's a great start to zucchini for the season. We've only been harvesting probably in total about 2, maybe 2.5 weeks at this point. It wasn't very long ago that the plant started producing, but I have another plant that I started yesterday, and I'm going to allow those to obviously grow up. The current plants that I have, because of, and I want to say it's because of the weather, right? Because of the weather, have started to show signs of powdery mildew. So I went ahead and cut off like any affected leaves, but of course, like once it's on the plant, it's going to keep growing. All you can do is try to like slow it down quite a bit. But you know, this plant I think gave me a pretty good amount of fruit. I will put the total weight on the screen for what we got from this plant. I've been measuring the fruits as I've been bringing them in. So, you know, hopefully that one can hang on just a little bit longer, at least for the other one to get started. You know, if it can stay free of any attacks, I would love that, because it's been really nice to have, and I really enjoy this particular zucchini much better than the Black Beauty, even though I do really like that one as well. The Black Beauty, I really prefer to harvest those very, very young, and when I say very young, probably about like this size. I think they're super sweet, they stay crisp. Much better flavor, much better texture. These, even at this size, they hold their texture, and I really, really like that. And you guys can see, like, even at this size, which this is kind of like the ideal size. So this one's about 7 inches. That was the size I was trying to get most of them to. Sometimes if they don't get pollinated well enough, then they don't get much bigger than, you know, something like this here, which is still edible and delicious. But there are no seeds on the inside, which is actually great. And this zucchini is really, really good. All right, so I think I'm gonna switch to a medium shredder. I think this might be a little too fine for the zucchini because it's getting stuck. It started off really nicely. I don't really know what happened, but I'm gonna switch to the medium. So all I'm gonna do with the little baggie is write what it is and today's date on it, and then that I obviously froze it, like I cleaned and froze it today. So writing gray zucchini. And because I truly don't know how long this will actually last, I'm not gonna put like a use by date in it because it is going in the freezer. But what I'll do rather is observe how well they actually last and how long. And then when next year comes around and it's time to grow zucchini again, then I can put like kind of a estimated date for what I expect from how long I expect the squash to last. Now, one other thing I think you could do, and I do this with kale too, is take this, actually put it in a, what do you call it? In like a muffin tin, flash freeze it, and then put the actual zucchini pucks, like the muffin pucks, into a freezer bag together. That way you have like actual measured amounts of shredded zucchini. So maybe it's that you don't want to add a whole, you know, 1 quart bag of this to something that you're making. Maybe you making a quick, like, you know, pasta for just yourself or for 2 people or something, and you want to just throw in a little extra veg or something. That would be a good way to preserve this. That's actually what I do with the kale, and I actually really like that method. I did not come up with that on my own. I actually got that from a channel called Grounded Haven Homestead, and you know, I'm sure she didn't come up with it, but she definitely is the one who sparked the idea for me to do my kale in that way, and I really, really enjoy doing that. So I think this is about all I'm gonna put into this. Let me see how much this actually weighs. And I was like thinking, now that I'm saying it out loud and seeing how much zucchini we actually have, I might go ahead and do that for some of the remaining ones that are coming out of the garden. And depending on how much, you know, this fills up today as well, that's like nearly a pound of zucchini. That's crazy, which I'm sure that should be about the equivalent of, you know, it should measure out pretty much the same as it measured beforehand. 1 pound, 5 ounces, 25 ounces. trying to get it to roughly a pound, and that'll be good. All right, so this is roughly 1 pound. And I'll actually write that on here as well, so that way I'll know, you know, how much zucchini, if I need to add to something, how much it actually is that's going in. So I'll do this with another bag, and then if I can get another bag like that, that is actually a pound, I will go ahead with the rest of these and actually put them in the muffin tin, so I can have like smaller pucks of zucchini, maybe like half a pound, that I can just throw into like a quick pasta. Like that would be way too much for a pasta. I'd probably use something like that for like some soup or something, maybe like something that I'm slow cooking where I want to add like a lot of extra vegetables to it. Because I probably should have pulled out my little stands to be able to hook the bags to. I think that would have made this a little bit easier, but we're here, so this is what we're gonna do for today. Alright, so I have my muffin tin here. I went ahead and used the 12 like regular size muffin tin. When I do my kale, I actually have like a Texas size muffin tin that I actually use, but I feel like zucchini, because it can be pretty water bound sometimes, I want to do this in smaller increments, and that way, you know, if I need some, just a little bit of extra, I can, you know, pull it out in smaller portions and then just pull more if I actually need it. But I sprayed this down with a little bit of oil. Whether or not that was truly necessary for this, I don't know. I never did it with the kale, but you know, I'm gonna see like what difference it makes in doing it with the zucchini. But basically all I'm doing is packing this. I'll cover it over, and then I'll put it in the freezer for a few hours, and then we'll go ahead and dump it out into a bag for preservation. So I got an additional like 7 little molds from this, and this is like perfect portion size. So all I'm gonna do is cover this over with a little plastic wrap so that, you know, nothing drips down on it from the freezer if somebody should go in and grab something, or you know, just as a precautionary measure. So that's really it. That's all I'm gonna do. Flash freeze this and then bag this up, and we can move on to the onions. So y'all, before I actually move on to the onions, I just wanted to show y'all this too. This is how I've been preserving some of the herbs. I bought these little ice trays from Kroger. I like the fact that they have the covers attached to them. They have these little vent lids, so let some things, let some air into the actual ice tray. But I'm actually gonna bag these up because these have been made for a little bit. I have some lemon peel cubes here, and then this is some dill that I did these on what, May 13th, and froze them and never took them out. So I'm actually gonna put these into their own little baggies so that these can be preserved. I can clean up the trays, and these will be ready for the next set of herbs that come out the garden. Jump out of it now, baby. So you guys can see like how that looks. It smells so good. Oh God. So as I gather some more lemon, I will add more to this bag. Same with the dill. All right, y'all, so all I'm doing is starting with these these yellow onions. I actually got these from the store, but you can see I had like, I think this might be the second one that is kind of like sprouting. So I want to go ahead and get these cut up so I can put them away and they'll be out of my way in the kitchen. And I have my little bag already ready to go. So I'm just gonna go ahead and slice these up really quickly. I'm not doing any dices with these yellow onions, just regular like slices. So fun fact about onions, I don't know what the enzyme in the onion is called that makes you tear up, but it's more concentrated at the root end. So if you want to avoid like the tearing, when you cut onions, just don't cut off this little root end, and it'll actually minimize the amount of tearing that you deal with, if even at all, in order to cut the onions up. I was like, I'm only doing 3 right now, so you know, I'm not following that rule. I said, but when I get to the red onions and I have to do several of them, I probably will do that. So all I'm doing is removing that part that started sprouting as well. It's gonna be a little tougher than I want it to be. And plain and simple, just going through, slicing these. I'm not doing anything like regular, anything fancy, I mean. You know, I don't even care that they're like slightly uneven. So this part is taken care of. We have all the yellow onions that I had in the house sliced up, and this will go in the freezer with the other veggies. All right, y'all, so before we put our onions on the scale, I'm gonna weigh the bucket first. Oh, that ain't even enough to turn the scale on. So y'all can see the scale didn't even come on for the actual bucket. So I'm guessing we'll just like minus like a pound off the onions, even though just to give a margin of error. But let me go ahead and grab the onions and I'll weigh them in. So in total, we have 15.2 pounds of onions. The scale is doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So y'all can see, and yes, it's a little upside down, but 15.2 pounds. All right, y'all, so you saw that we have 15.2 pounds of red onions that we grew in the garden this year. Now, I think when you buy onions at the store, the bag's usually like 3 pounds, right? Now, a few years ago, a 3-pound bag of onions cost you maybe $2.99, on sale maybe $2. These days, it's looking more like about $5 or so. Red onions and I think white onions cost a little bit more. I don't know why, but it's not like they have different like growing seasons or something where one just takes way longer than the other. But I want to do a quick comparison of what the cost savings is doing this way versus if I had purchased them from my local grocery store. Right now they have organic I think I have onion skins between my toes. Right now they have our organic red onions for $1.79 per pound, and we had a total of just about 15 pounds. We'll give that 0.2 to the bucket for sure, but at $1.79 per pound times 15, that's a total of $26.85 for onions. Now, maybe the yellow onions do cost more, and again, I really don't know why, because it's not as though any one has a longer growing season than the other, but at $26.85, and that seems, I don't know if that's a that's like regular price. It doesn't seem like it's a sale price, but $30 for onions. I believe I paid maybe $4 for my seeds. Now, I did not use all of my onion seeds, which, you know, at the time, again, being a new gardener, I wasn't aware of the decline in germination for onions. So I was like, well, I'll save some of these for next year. Plus, you know, space was always an issue as well. So with that, I think I paid maybe $4 or $5 for my packet of seeds for my red onions. And the fact that I paid $4 or $5 to not even use the entire pack of seeds and get 15 pounds of onions, bearing in mind too that, you know, while we had a pretty good onion harvest for our red onions, that all of the onions did not fully bulb to size. So there was a lot of potential left on the table, but $30 that I don't have to spend this year, and with the amount of red onions that we have right now, and I guess you could say at the rate of which I've been using onions recently, I do think these will last us a pretty good portion of I would say through the next growing season. Of course, I'm probably going to end up having to buy onions, but my goal going into the next growing season for onions is to ensure that I get at least a full year's supply to last me throughout the entire year. The way I do my shopping now, I typically end up purchasing roughly about one bag of, let's say, each onion, let's say each yellow and red each month. That's enough to like get us through the month. There are times when, yes, I can absolutely use one whole onion for every single time I cook, but I've gotten to a place where I'm like, you know, does every dish need a whole onion? I like onions, you know, if I could do it, I would do it, but as grocery prices have risen, it's kind of made me ask more of those questions, like, does this dish really need a whole onion for it to do what I need it to do? And I've been, since then, using probably a little less onion than I would have used, you know, a few years back. So I am thinking with these that I can probably get at least a good, you know, maybe 6 months or so out of these red onions. As I said, I'll be preserving them in the freezer, and in conjunction with the white onions that we have coming out of the garden. And I do buy yellow onions. I will buy yellow onions with whatever yellow onions I end up buying. That will be able to sustain us. Now, I will look to see if I have, if there are some options for me to purchase maybe onions in bulk, so I don't have to keep buying them at the store, because I think yellow onions, let's see what the yellow onions are running for. So a 3-pound bag of yellow onions, roughly about $2.69, and that's not even organic. Each onion would be 75 cents a piece. So, you know, I do want to look into possibly getting like a bulk order of onions for the yellow onions. I do think red onions and yellow onions can most of the time be used interchangeably, but just for regular cooking, I do prefer the yellow onions. Red onions I tend to use in dishes where I want to like sweeten or, you know, balance the kind of like the pepperiness. You know, if I'm using like red onions and bell peppers or something like that, or if it's something that, you know, specifically calls for red onions. But that's what I will do with my red onions, and some of them I do want to pickle. Now, whether or not I'm gonna can the pickle, I don't know. I haven't gotten into like the canning. I know I can go on Bull's website and look up an actual recipe, and I probably will look up and print some out so that I can potentially do that. I want to do the same for like the tomatoes. I want to make marinated tomatoes, but I can use for now like my Instant Pot to do like water bath canning. I will be getting an electric canner pretty soon. So, you know, once I have that, then I can do a little bit more around like actual canning. But for the things that are vinegar based, you know, we can use our Instant Pot, which that was kind of like a cool thing to find out I could use it for. So if you didn't know that and you have an Instant Pot, definitely use your Instant Pot for canning. But yeah, so that's pretty decent, you know, I guess, for the amount of onions I grew in such a small space. I only used half of a 4x4 bed, and we totaled about 102 red onions. So I think that's pretty good for what we did. And I'm gonna go ahead and get these processed. So I'm going to be doing some sliced, I'm going to be doing some diced. I will be doing this all by hand. So like I said, it cannot all happen today because I'm just not going to sit here and make myself suffer through that much agony. All right, y'all, so obviously it's a new day and I am just now getting to the red onions and processing them. So I'm going to be slicing some, dicing some. I'm gonna try to get through as many as I can because like I said, as far as like the actual onions go, I don't necessarily want to sit here and be crying a bunch, but we have to do as much as we possibly can because I think we're getting to a place where I'm going to feel like this about the peppers, where it's going to be like a little bit overwhelming, but pulling out a few at a time. I have 2 1-gallon bags here. One is going to be for sliced onion, one is going to be for diced onion. I'm going to see how much I can fill with the regular size onions first. If it comes down to it, the small ones I will actually just kind of maybe cut in half. And then what I'll do with those is just leave them in halves for like soups and things. Typically like things you would put like pearl onions in, but since I don't have pearl onions, they are like kind of pearl onion size. I figured that would be like a good substitute for that. So that's what I'm gonna do. But let's go ahead and get these started. I'm literally just peeling the skin off of this. Looks really good on the inside. And then I may go ahead and just save a few, just like a small few of the fresh ones for just kind of like fresh eating. And those will be onions that I would probably largely intend to use raw. That's all I'm doing for the slice. I'm not worried about if they're like super uniform or anything like that. And then I have my little baggies with my baggie stands. I actually took out the baggie stands. I'll leave this linked in my Amazon affiliate description link for y'all down below if you're interested in getting those. I'm pretty sure I got them from Amazon. But yeah, so that's all we're gonna be doing so we can get as many of these together as possible. And I will show you if we were able to fill both of these gallon bags at the end of it all. All right, y'all, so this is the gallon bag of sliced onions that we finished up. And y'all, let me tell you, I suffered through this because, honey, I was crying, okay? But this one is ready. I'm getting ready to work on the diced onions right now, and I want to try to get through at least this full bag of this. Once I'm done with that, I'm probably going to stop there and wrap up the video because, for one, I think I will have had my fair share of onion cutting for today, but two, there are other things I just want to move on to for today, and then I'll come back and work on the rest of the onions in a different video. I'm gonna go ahead and dice these up, and hopefully out of the onions that I've already peeled and kind of rinsed off and everything, we can get a full gallon of diced onions out of that. I'm doing probably more of a medium dice. That way the onion dices won't be too big, you know, in case something calls for, you know, a smaller dice, and, you know, if it requires a finer dice, and the onions are a little bit larger, you know, at least it will be bearable. It won't be too big, pretty much, just where you get like these huge onion chunks in your food. Now, I don't have an onion dicer, but I also don't think it takes very long to do this by hand. I don't know. Maybe I'll feel differently when I actually grow 200, well over 200 onions next year. And by then, maybe we can invest in a dicer. But this is the size that I'm pretty much doing most of them. If you guys can see that. And, you know, if they get a little bit bigger, get a little bit smaller, not really the biggest deal. But that's what I'm going to be doing for these. So let's go ahead and make it happen. All right, y'all, so I finished the onions that I had already like peeled and rinsed. This is what we got so far for the diced onions. This bag is not 100% full. I am absolutely not done processing the red onions. This is still everything that's kind of left in the basket, which I would say it's probably at least another like 40 or 50 onions in there. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. The last thing I'm gonna do, which I started the other day, is bag up the little zucchini pucks that I made. Those have been in the freezer since that day that I started this, and I want to get them out, take them out of the muffin trays, and get them bagged so everything can actually go into the freezer and be complete. So let's go ahead and do that. Got a little bit of an icicle layer, but that's okay. I'm just gonna break that up. They really should have been taken out the same day. I don't think that would have happened. But if I'm not mistaken, I think these are roughly somewhere between like a third and a half a cup. I'm leaning more towards a half, but let's see if we can actually get them out now, right? Maybe this little spatula wasn't the answer. I'm gonna use my little butter thing and hope I don't scratch my hand in the process. Come on, be a friend. Uh-oh, well that's not good now, is it? All right, so I think we ran into a little bit of a dilemma because this is not coming out as easily as the kale would. So it's literally just breaking up the zucchini, which is not the goal. All right, maybe I'll let this sit out for a little bit and then I'll show you guys what it looks like once it's bagged up. All right, y'all, so I let the pan sit out for a few minutes while I did some other stuff, and they are done. So this is what the little pucks look like. And this is just like super easy to pull out one at a time and throw it into something that you're cooking. that is everything I'm doing for today, y'all. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, hit the subscribe button, and share it with a friend. And I appreciate you guys spending time with me today in the kitchen, preserving up the things that we're growing in the garden. I appreciate you being here with me. As always, let's keep learning, sewing, and growing together, friends. Until our next garden update, bye.